Morning.
How's everybody this fine day?
Great.
All right.
Beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Right.
I think spring finally found us.
Right.
Finally came.
But I don't want to say that too loud, it might run away again.
Yeah. You never know.
This is Michigan. Just a few things before we get started here this morning. Today's the last day of May,
Right.
sadly, because this is my birthday month, so it's going to be sad to see May close out. And I still have a free chicken dinner up in Frankenmuth
All right.
that I have to use before the end of the day today. So Sue talked about sneaking up to Frankenmuth this afternoon, but I don't know if that's in the cards or not. I got a lot of work to do today. So we'll see how that all works out. But I'm sad to see. I don't even know what happened to May. It seemed like yesterday was May 1st and today's May 31st.
Right.
So, I mean, time flies when you're having fun, I suppose.
Yeah.
And we welcome Deb back from Japan. We missed her for a couple weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And thank Dave and the whole team that carried on without Deb. We miss her and appreciate all of the people on our worship team, and thank them for all that they do to worship God and support our church and help us, etc. Also, we filed our 119-page complaint. This is an actual copy of the complaint filed in federal court. 119 pages of issues that are documented. Everything from the city seizing and taking our vehicles and property off of our property to harassment on a regular basis by their inspectors, both for alleged zoning issues and ordinance issues. We've been in South Warren. This is our 35th anniversary, and we've never had problems with the city. In fact, in August of 2023, the city and the previous mayor gave us a mayoral proclamation, on mayoral paper with the gold seal of the city on it, that said thank you for 3 decades plus of service to South Warren. And the previous mayor previously told me there's no other church that does as much as Harvest Time in the entire city of Warren, and thanked us and gave us a mayoral proclamation. Then we went from hero in 23 to 0 today with the new administration. So that provided the impetus for us to file the complaint. Apparently people are taking note of it. It was on CBS Detroit News. This morning the Detroit News ran a front page story about it, which is pretty extensive with about 15 photos. They came out and took photos. And my wife and I stopped on Van Dyke yesterday for a burger. And there was a lady in the restaurant. She says, I just want to thank you for your suit and good luck with your suit. It's about time somebody stands up. So, I mean, this lady isn't affiliated with our church or whatever, but she's from Warren, and we were at a Warren burger joint. And, she was excited and happy for us in terms of us filing the suit. I'm part of this group of Warren evangelical pastors, and we send out messages to each other. And this morning, I got the coolest message from my brethren pastors in our city. Not me specifically, but it went out to all the pastors in Warren. It's one of my favorite psalms, Psalm 34. In Psalm 34:6 it says, "In my desperation I prayed, and the Lord listened. He saved me from all my troubles. For the angel of the Lord is a guard. He surrounds and defends all who fear him." And then, one of the coolest verses, Psalm 34, verse 8. "Taste and see that the Lord is good. Oh, the joys of those who take refuge in him." I mean, that's kind of cool. A few years back, a dear friend of mine who happened to own Art Van Furniture, Art Van Elslander, in my previous life, I did a ton of business with them. I was in marketing and printing and did a lot of their printing and marketing, and he really helped my business. He helped me personally a lot. And it's funny because when Art died in 2018, he was a devout Catholic. He supported a lot of things. He saved the Thanksgiving Day parade when the parade almost went bankrupt. He gave the Capuchins over on Mount Elliott about $20-some million for their feeding on Mount Elliott in Detroit. Did a lot of great things, but one of his favorite verses was taste and see that the Lord is good, and the joys of those who take refuge in him. And at his funeral, they played the psalm and the music on this grand pipe organ at the big Archdiocese church on Woodward in Detroit. Taste and see that the Lord is good. You know, when you connect with God, I'm just trying to tell you that the Lord will protect you. In my desperation, it says, I prayed, he listened to me, and he saved me from my troubles. You know, our troubles are helped with the Lord if we just are able to connect with him, if we're able to, to join with him. You know, I ask you today, though, continue to pray for our church. The battle's just beginning. You know, I'm sure the city's going to come back with guns ablazing.
Right, yeah.
And this is a David and Goliath story. We're the David and they're the Goliath. We're the city's the third largest municipality in Michigan, in all of Michigan. And so they got lots of resources. They're a multi-hundreds of million dollar operation. So I don't expect them to back off. I don't expect them to get any sense in terms of the wrong that they did, but the court will figure that out. A federal judge will figure that out. But pray for us, pray for our protection. This little church has been around for, like I said, this year will be our 35th year. It is our 35th year. And I've been the pastor of this church. I don't even know where time goes, but I've been the pastor of this church this year for 18 years. So half of the church's life. For the last 18 years, it seems like it's about 3 weeks, but I don't know where 18 years went. But just pray for the protection of God, the provision of God, and such. You know, there's a lot of hurting people in our community, and a lot of the things that the city has done to us are difficult and painful and problematic. So, we have to pray for our enemies as well. And I don't want that lost on us. We have to pray for the people that persecute us, pray for the people that attack us. And we have to remember something, because people think that you fight them. We don't fight against people. A lot of people fight people. They fight flesh and blood. But if you understand what God says in his word, it says to put on the full armor of God. And it also says in Ephesians 6 there, in putting on the full armor of God, it says we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We don't wrestle against people. We wrestle against principalities, against powers, against wickedness in high places, against the rulers of darkness, against the spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. It's the spirit that's in people that we wrestle with. And I want to make it real clear, our fight is with the principalities, powers, the wickedness, the darkness. We're not fighting people. We're fighting spirits. Because the battle is a spiritual battle. And I don't want that lost on us, like, oh, you want to beat up so-and-so, or yeah, I'd like to beat up so-and-so, slap them in Jesus' name. That's not appropriate. So, that I just want to say that that's very not appropriate. But you'd like to do that, but we're not doing this for notoriety. We're just doing this because it's the right thing to do. There's the church is hurting because of this. It's caused a lot of sleepless nights and difficult things for us personally as leaders of this church. And we lost hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff that the city's basically stole from our property. The city claims we're to maintain our property better, yet they took our dumpster. I mean, there's dumpsters up and down 9 Mile Road. And now the dumpster company says that dumpster, that metal can that belongs to the waste company, because we just pay for dumpster service to have it dumped. That can is worth about 10 grand. So they want their 10 grand. So I said, send the bill to the city of Warren. They took it, they have it, or whatever they did with it. It's in their possession. But that's how crazy it is. And I also know that there's a lot of people hurting in our congregation as well. Hurting financially, hurting with issues of healing, hurting mentally, spiritually. Some people are hurting because of their own poor choices of sin. 2 weeks ago I just did a funeral for a friend of mine whose 35-year-old son died from an overdose. And there's just people that are hurting. It's difficult. And as we look ahead to June, I also want to tell you I'm asking for prayer for myself. I'm going to have eye surgery again.
Oh wow!
On my right eye, which I'm basically blind in my right eye. I only really see out of my left eye. And before the last surgery, I was able to see out of my right eye, and now I can't. So things got messed up, and now we're going to try to fix that. They say I might need 1 or 2 or maybe even more surgeries. And it's just if it can be fixed or not. But whatever happens, I'm good with God. Some things come by medicine, some things come by miracle. Some healings come with the doctor, some healings come by the mercies of God that are just miracles that God performs. And so I just know there's a lot of people here that need a touch, they need hope, they need help. Some people just need God because they've walked away from God, and so they have the basic need for having God in their life to intersect with them and to set them on a path that's a path of holiness and righteousness and right living. So we can pray for all of those things. Today I also want to announce that I'm continuing to work my way through the book of Acts, and today we're going to turn the chapter to chapter 8. And this is an interesting thing. It's kind of really interesting to me. We're talking about the city's persecution of our church, and today it just so happens that I didn't plan this, how it all worked out. We're talking about the persecution of the church from chapter 8 in Acts. So last week we talked about the persecution of Stephen, where Stephen was stoned because people got their undies in a bunch. Jan, our previous church administrator, said, "You can't say things like that from the pulpit, Pastor. That's inappropriate," but it happened. And one of the greatest people in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, he sanctioned the stoning of Stephen, and then changed his life and became the author of 2/3 of the New Testament, and one of the greatest advocates in all of history for the Church of Jesus Christ. So change is possible and change is real. And so I just pray that God continues to stay with us. I got to tell you something about Harvest Time's 35 years. A lot of people, there's some really strong haters in the city of Warren that say, Sue and Curtis live this extravagant, wild life, and we take all the money from the church and live this extravagant life. I got news for them. It's not true. And when you serve a poor population, there's not a lot of money. Unless you hold them by their ankles and shake them for the quarters to come out. I don't know. That just probably wouldn't be right either. Sorry, Jan. Jan was like a mother to me, and she always used to critique things I would say after service, like, "Pastor, you have to be more pastoral." Jan was sweet. I miss Jan. She just passed away unexpectedly, and I'm sure Jan is smiling in heaven saying, I tried to change them, it didn't work. But nonetheless, today we're going to talk about persecution and the mission of church from chapter 8. So let's begin with a word of prayer. And